Hey everyone, we are so excited to the reaction in the community for the pod. I need to take a moment of your time to tell you to please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or hit the follow button on Spotify. We are in the humble beginning stage of our show and establishing a listener base is of paramount importance and will help us determine the frequency of future episodes. Thanks and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to Neuse Little Podcast, an audio program discussing the almost 50-year history of Neuse Little Theatre and the backstage antics and stories that come along with running a community theater in a small town. I'm your host, Matt Gore, and we are coming to you from NLT's stage and base of operations, the little log cabin located on the banks of the Neuse River in Smithfield, North Carolina. We lovingly refer to it as the Hut. All right, everybody. We are here for another episode of Neuse Little Podcast, and I have here someone that I've been trying to get on the podcast since the very beginning. When we first talked about this as an idea, Mita and I, we always said we had to go on and get this person on because they're a big part of NLT. And this person also had a hand in introducing me to the stage in general, and that has been a big saving grace in my life, and so I'm indebted to her for that. So I personally thank her for that. And I'm very happy to welcome to the podcast Miss Ruth Mills. How you doing, Ruth?
I'm doing wonderfully.
Well, that's great. I know you had some brief medical issues there, but you're back up and running, and we are very, very happy to see that.
Thank you.
No problem. You got your husband here, Michael, with you, and he's making sure you're getting here safe and all that. And we really it's a rainy night in Smithfield, North Carolina. And we wanted to go ahead and record you tonight because we just had a board meeting, and we thought, well, let's go ahead and record Ruth while she's here, because I've been, like I said, wanting to get her on from the very beginning. And I guess I called you Miss Mills for the first 5 years because I knew you at Triple S, Smithfield Selma High School, where I went to high school, and where you taught for how many years?
20 years.
Yeah. And,
Michael says 20 years.
Yeah. No, you were the theater arts teacher, and you were an excellent theater arts teacher, and I remember enjoying your classes very much. And
sometimes too much, Matt.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes.
Oh
too
yeah,
much.
yeah. I'm sure there were times there were times I was goofing off in the back because there's something about teenagers and theater arts. They love to show off all of a sudden, and sometimes it's very infectious. And
like people want to dance who shouldn't ever dance.
What are you talking about? I'm an excellent dancer. No,
I didn't say you were. You might have been. You might have been.
No, I wasn't. I remember I had the distinction of being in a play where Ruth Mills actually acted. That is a very rare sight indeed. Because, and not that she's not a good actress, it's just that you just don't. I've just never seen you get up on stage except for in Bye Bye Birdie when you played the part. And
the mother.
The mother, yeah.
And the biggest part of that was I tried everybody I could to take the part. And I couldn't get anybody to take it. And Kevin Daughtry was the lead in the show. And he said, I never said the same line twice, the same way twice. And they had to wear a fur coat because that was
you were wearing this very heavy mink shawl or something like that.
Mink coat. It was the hottest I have ever been on stage. So it's lucky I remembered anything. But that was a fun show. Yeah,
it was hard to get the theater going, like musicals going at Triple S, and that was one that went and was quite successful.
Yeah, we had a good turnout, and we had a great band. It was all kinds of wonderful things.
Yep. And so, moving on to NLT, how were you first introduced to NLT, Ruth? Kind of take me to your origin here. How did you walk through these steps? How did that happen?
We went to a show, and we saw Once Upon a Mattress. We came to the show, and it was when we were, the stage was out here.
Yeah.
And you kind of sat there. And I met a number of people, and there was one person, I can't remember who it was, who went out and had a hissy fit. And I said, I think I belong here. Because everybody just sort of looked at her like, well, this happens all the time with this person, and we shouldn't be surprised. So I said, this is a group I've got to get to know. I have to get to know this group.
A weird cast of characters, both on and off stage, you would say.
Yes, but fun.
And you had, I've only known you as a director, and you were the first the concept of theater director that was the first time I had run across that when you had directed Bye Bye Birdie, and it was a foreign concept to me. And so, how'd you get started as a director? Tell me about that.
Oh. Well, I loved theater all through high school. I loved it in college. And then I went to graduate school at NYU. And they took me to England and with graduate school. One of the courses was in England. And we traveled all over, and I saw what was happening elsewhere in the world.
So you broadened your horizons. You're saying it opened your eyes up to new ways of living.
I think that's it. I saw wonderful people acting in New York, and I had to write a paper about it. And all
Do you
of
remember
that.
about what year this was? What years you were in New York and over in England? So this was
Late
around
90s,
so this
late
was around
90s.
the,
Yeah,
So-
70 years. Oh my God, am I that old? Oh yeah.
So as Michael was telling me, you were kind of in the theater scene in England and New York around the 1980s and stuff like that. But you had directed before that. You'd always had a passion
Oh,
for
yeah.
direct. And what do you like so much about directing? What is the passion for you? Why do you like doing it so much?
Well, the easy answer would be, I like to tell people what to do.
Yeah.
But the real answer is that you have a vital part in listening to and watching people create characters on the stage. And the director has that sort of insight that a lot of times you don't have, or an understanding. So I love it, and I love the children's theater
Yes.
that we started here. I started here, and it has burgeoned, and we're hoping that eventually we'll be back with that.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be open. Yeah.
Well, I hope so.
No, it will be. And that youth program's a big part of what we do here in Neuse Little Theatre, because it's
Right.
in years past when COVID-19 wasn't a thing, it's been always full, always. There's always like a waiting list, correct?
Yeah, I always have a waiting list, and the people who come back. I have had the same people, sometimes 8, 9, 10 times come back, because what I find in directing is exciting, and apparently they have a good time with it. And that's my philosophy. For kids, they have to have a good time. They have to enjoy what they're doing. They have to feel that they've had a part in it.
Yeah.
And it's vital.
Absolutely. And now, based on the information I have, it's this was always the last 2 weeks in June, and the parents signed children up ahead of time, and they've had to cut it off at around 36. But
We were
32.
We were at 32
okay, 32. Gotcha.
last year.
We cut it off at 32 because there was a year that Ruth had 44.
Right. Yes.
I couldn't say no.
We decided that was too many.
Yeah, I don't know why. It was, other than the fact that we couldn't get them all on the stage at the same time.
Yeah.
It was no problem. We had them outside. We had them everywhere.
Well, and people help you out with that. So, like, you've got Patsy now.
Oh, yeah.
And Nancy, who's kind of like the den mother of the whole group, and the child wrangler and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the food. She makes sure that the snack is ready.
And it says here that the first one you did was the first show that was produced out of the Neuse Little Theatre summer camp was the Disney's Aristocats. Excuse me.
Aristocats.
Yes.
That was the first one you did that was of the latest generation. The very first one you did was Fairy Tale Bits and Bytes.
Right.
That was the very first one we did.
That was a group of different fairy tales that you put together, and the kids acted them out.
But it wasn't a musical.
No.
And then she went through, I think she did a variety show one, and then there was the Winnie Pooh one, Eeyore's Birthday, I think. But she didn't do it. The Aristocrats,
Jungle Book, Aladdin, and The Little Mermaid. And
those were the musicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once she started doing the musicals, it really took off. The kids really, really liked doing musicals.
And it was very lucrative for the theater as well because, the families of the kids, they love coming to see their kids in something, and it was very fun. The kids make their costumes. It's just a big part of what you guys do here, I'm obviously not as involved in that aspect. That's never been my scene. But I'm so glad it's here.
Maybe it should be.
No. The kids thing, I'm going to have to be eased into that,
It's a lot of fun. It's fun to watch, and they do an amazing job for just 2 weeks of rehearsal.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed. And the summer camp is nice because we get younger kids, because we don't always have a part for younger actors. I mean, we try and do at least one show that has some young actors or an actor in it, but
Right.
the summer camp is all young people, and it helps us to grow those kids so that they're ready to be on the stage when we need somebody for the
the next
stage.
generation.
And so I know the summer camp has led to them going on to other theater groups and doing things too. So it's nice because it helps to sort of teach them the basics so that by the time they hit the stage with an adult in an adult show, they're ready to go. And it really helps, and it keeps that interest alive and gets them comfortable with wanting to do it.
Well, Mita brings up an interesting point that I want to ask Ruth here. What are the key differences in between directing a child and directing an adult, in your opinion?
Well, there's a lot less crying with adults.
You'd think,
You'd think, but they're usually, don't touch me, don't do this, don't touch me, don't ever come near me again. That kind of thing with the kid. Now, I was going to say that was the adults, but
I thought that was Reggie. I thought you were describing Reggie.
Yeah. No, that was the kids. And once they get past that stage, and Patsy won't put up with it. So that really works well. And Nancy doesn't even hear it. It goes straight over her head, and she just says, well, you'll just have to learn to live with it because that's the way it is.
Right. And I'm sure dealing with emotions and the kids and the stuff like that is probably harrowing sometimes. But don't you, and like Mita was saying, that they learn a bunch of life skills that are very useful.
Oh, yeah. I have to say I've had very little, except for, you have somebody who won't learn lines or something, but that you have in every play. But it's very important, and it's important for theaters, little theaters, large theaters, and professional theaters, to have children who are learning and becoming who they want to be and who they can try to be.
Their brains are forming. They're like little sponges, what you
That's
say.
it.
Yeah, they soak up so much more than it's so much harder to get an older adult to learn things than it is for a kid, They're just like blank slates.
That's right.
People always ask, well, why don't you do more kids shows? Why don't you do more kids shows? And then you always say, well, there's the summer music program, right?
Right.
And that's a good outlet for anybody that's like, well, you need to have more kid involvement, and which I think is yes important, but at the same time, there's other areas that are very much worth exploring.
Oh, yes.
Wouldn't you say? What's some shows that in the past that we've done at NLT that are very memorable for you? I know there's many out there, and we're not going to remember them all, but what are some that stand out to you?
There is, I have to say that every show has its own particular and specialness to it. And I get to take something away, and I hope the people get to take something away at the same time. There's something always special with, even the ones that I've had problems with, or there's been a terrible crisis or whatever, I've learned something, and the people involved in it learned something too.
I find that too. I find that with each and every show, no matter what issues may arise, and some are smoother rides than others,
Yeah.
but you always learn something from it. You always take something from it to make it better on the next show. Because when I'm directing a show, I'm always thinking about kind of not the next one, but the idea that this won't be the last one. You know
That's
what
right.
you know what I'm saying? So I always try to learn something from that to grow, because I'm always kind of looking forward to the next one. Or historically, I might get to an age where I get burnt out too, where I'm just like, I'll do it when I want to, but I don't need to do it constantly. But I haven't quite got there yet.
Well, I hope not.
No, I'm not as prolific as some people that'll keep doing them back to back to back to back. I won't do all that. I need a break, but the passion's very much still there. And it seems like sitting across the table from you right now that the passion's still there for you, Ruth.
Yes, it still is.
Yeah. And
It's the second love of my life.
uh-huh. And how long have you and I'm assuming your first love of your life?
Oh, you mean Daniel?
Oh, how long have you and Michael been married?
Oh, shoot. 22 years.
42 years, he says.
42 years.
40
And again, I'm that old. Am I that old? Yes.
You're a child bride.
Yes, that's right. No, I wasn't.
It's not always easy to be the spouse of somebody who does this a lot. We kind of take it for granted. Us directors, we kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
But it's asking a lot also of the spouses too, because there's always meals that need to be prepared, rides that need to be arranged, and you need to be to theater, especially for a director.
That's
You
right.
need to be there at a certain time, no matter what, or else they're not rehearsing. Some things may happen where it's like, okay, Starwoman, I'm running like 5 minutes late, but usually you have to be there to start rehearsal.
But I have tried, I have also, and I think most directors try, if you get somebody who has a problem and you don't think they can do it, but
So you're
I have pulled wives and husband and children into plays because they sort of felt left out and they didn't know what was going on. And once they got into the play, then they started understanding. And that's an important part for this, like you said, the spouses, the kids. Why isn't Daddy doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Or why isn't Mommy doing
Reggie
this?
talked about that. Reggie talked about in depth about how it was just type of a thing with him where he was just pulled into it.
Yeah.
And then when he was pulled into it, he understood it. But you touched on something very interesting in your last paragraph there. You said something about, what is it like when an actor isn't quite getting what you need them, getting to a place you need them to get to, or performing the line. What happens when you have to direct an actor who's just not quite getting it to where you need them to get it?
You work until you can. You do everything you can. You ask them to do what they feel that they can do, and you hope that it all comes out. And I have to say that more often than not, you get exactly what you're looking for. Sometimes you go, oh my world, what are you doing? Where has this been? Where have you been? Why haven't you been here doing this? Because this is wonderful, and that's exciting. It's like with the kids, the same kind of thing. You get that feeling of fulfillment and that feeling that my life is complete,
Yeah.
especially the theater life.
Yeah, it is a great moment when somebody gets there, and you see it happen as a director. You kind of recognize it instantly. Of like, yes, you're there, and you kind of want to. It's fragile. You don't want to really touch it, so you don't want to mess with it so much.
Yeah, I'll stand back here and watch.
Yeah, well, I found that as a director, one of the best things I learned is to stay out of the way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
If you need to step in and fix it, go ahead. But don't fiddle with it until it's broken, Don't direct just for the sake of directing. If it's working, let it work.
That's right.
So,
Very, very good advice.
because Larry asked me on Rope, because the final scene in Rope was with was flowing very, very well. It was the denouement, everything was leading up to this, and it was flowing very well. And I had given a fair amount of notes leading up to this, but then I kind of stopped, and they were like, well, why aren't you giving us notes for this scene? I was like, I don't need to. You know, I could sit here and nitpick it to death, but I don't have to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like what you guys are doing, and that ended up being the right choice because I just felt the scene was very good.
It's
the way it
always
was.
nice when you make the right choice too, isn't it?
Yeah. But moving on from that, did you direct Smokey Joe's Cafe?
Yes, I did.
So that's one we talk about a lot here. So tell me about your experience directing Smokey Joe's.
Well, some people were a little leery of it. It's too big a show, too much, you know, it's all singing, you know, what's going to happen and that kind of thing. And I can't remember probably everybody's name because there's some of them I never saw again. But not because I told them not to come back. It's
No, that
because they
happens.
moved away.
They moved away. Life
Yeah.
happened, and they just didn't
But
come
there's
back.
Darius Rose, and we were talking about this the other night. One of my favorite memories, they were sitting on risers,
Uh-huh.
and Darius came out and sat down. This is why I wanted to do homework, because I wanted to do my homework.
No,
Because
go ahead. You're doing great.
he sang this song, and it was such a lost song, and you thought, oh my God, that song is, you know, what's happening? And
Was
Sammy,
it Stand By Me?
No, that's the very end.
yeah, that's everybody.
Well, while you're at it, Mita, give us a brief rundown of what Smokey Joe's Cafe is about.
It's the songs of Lieber and Stoller, which most people, it's from the 50s and 60s. You'd know pretty much every single song they sing. It's Poison Ivy,
Yeah.
Hound Dog,
And we had a great-
Spanish Harlem. Love Potion number 9. Yeah, it's all the songs that when you think 50s and 60s, these are the songs, and so they're all like it's the watching people sing along or clap or tap their foot or just everybody in that audience, young or old, have heard these songs, and they were just real crowd pleasers. It was a great show, and I cannot remember the song. All I'm thinking of is Spanish Harlem, but that was Robbie.
No,
But it
yeah.
was right around the same time in the show, and I cannot remember the name of the song.
The male group that did the dances and that kind of thing was wonderful. But anyway, Darius was sitting there on the riser. Sammy walks out. Sammy Smith walks out, just lays his hand on the shoulder. And Darius looks at him, and you knew everything was going to be right. And that's one of those moments where everything's right in the show, but everything's going to be right.
In the world, you're saying?
Yes.
Is
If
it?
anybody can just have that one friend who lays a hand on the shoulder, everything's going to be right. And I love that show, obviously.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some really moving songs, particularly in the second half. But there were some
What
really
is it? It's why
upbeat,
I am
great
nothing.
songs. I am nothing. That's it.
I
yes.
am nothing. That's what Darius was singing. I am nothing. Nothing. And all Sammy did was pat his shoulder.
To let him know he was something.
Yes, that he
It's-
was something and that he was there for him and it was going to be good.
It's like the first half is it starts out with In the Neighborhood, which may be a little more obscure, but it's all about community and the groups and the gatherings, and then once you get into the second act, it's more along the lines of individual moments of for each person, and it's quite the roller coaster ride as far as emotions go, because there's really funny stuff, and there's some really tearjerker stuff, and it's all music. There's absolutely no dialogue. So
And I have to say, Anita Liverman was our choreographer. And she did an amazing job. I mean, here's 8 guys who thought they were all flat-footed. they thought that maybe they could dance a little, but they thought they were all, once they started with the choreography, they didn't think they could dance anymore. You know, they used to dance, now they can't dance anymore. And she was absolutely wonderful. She took the show and she made it a better show.
Yeah, she got Darius Rose to move in sync with everybody else. I think she's a saint and should be given a medal or something.
There should be a special award just for that.
Yeah. Yes.
Now you talk about your experiences working with these actors that we've had here at LSU for quite some time, and what's it like working with those people? You've worked with a lot of those people multiple times. At this point, you probably have a back and forth that's a rapport that's when you're working on a show together. Don't you find that?
Oh, yeah. You know you're always going to get a good performance from Reggie Parker. You're always going to get a good performance. There are some other people, if it's a musical, like Patsy, Darius Rose.
Yeah.
And Teresa.
And Teresa, yeah. You've worked with her a lot. You worked with her a lot.
Yeah.
Teresa's had some very iconic roles here, and she was Marion the Librarian and Music Man, which you also directed. Well, let's get into that one. What was it like going back to that was the last show we've done at JCC, was The Music Man, and that was we looked it up, that's in 2013. And what was it like directing The Music Man in such at a bigger venue and with
Well, I'd been to JCC before.
Oh,
so,
yeah, but with that show?
Yeah, It was wonderful. The costume changes that Teresa did were amazing. And when there was her house, as Marion was on the stage, and the night it rolled off, it was on a platform and it rolled off, so 2 of the 8 wheels were hanging over the stage, and no one even noticed it.
Oops.
They didn't even say it. Yeah, and Sean Braswell got into the truck. We were taking all this scenery and stuff back.
They were doing load in for the show?
No, it was the move out.
Oh, load out, excuse me,
It
I'm
was
sorry.
load out. And he twisted his ankle. He got in and sprained his ankle. I couldn't believe it. Everybody was, Sean, what do we do? He said, stay away from me, stay away from me. That's the way,
Well, I know he'd either broken a toe or sprained his ankle during the show too, because he was dancing on a bad foot.
Oh, that's
for
right.
Shapoopy, yeah.
Yeah, he sang
He had to-
Shapoopy.
He had to bounce around on that bad foot a couple of nights, I think. But I'm not really sure exactly what he did to it. So, but yeah, he's known for hurting himself during shows.
Apparently. Well, sometimes it's because he puts almost more than too much into what he's doing.
He liked swinging around on that rope on 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, didn't he?
Yes.
That was a big part of, was it Pandemonium, the name of the song?
Pandemonium.
Yeah.
Well, he liked that, but he liked selling the candies too.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
He had a basket around his
Yes,
waist.
his,
and,
what was the name of the song? My Unfortunate Erection.
yes,
That was the name
and
of the song.
He took it out to the audience and gave them candy.
Yeah, he kind of had his
Yeah.
own, yeah.
And a couple people in the audience tried to pay him for it. No, that's okay.
He had rigged his. I don't think it's in the script. Maybe it is in the script. I don't know.
I hope it is. If not, it should
But
be.
What?
He rigged his candy tray so that when he took his hands off of it, it was
Something was holding it up.
No,
And
it was
it
not
basi-
in the script.
It
But
wa-
we couldn't, once he came up with that, we couldn't stop laughing.
Of course not. You have to have that in there.
Yeah, it has to be in there.
Because basically the story is he's a little kid and he has a crush on one of the girl and he gets called up to spell a word, but he's having a moment of puberty, shall we
he's
say?
like 12 or 14,
Yeah.
which is prime target for oops, I can't control this.
Awkward, let me hold a book in front of it type of deal.
But the other thing that I thought was interesting with it was after that happened, and the little old ladies in the audience, and you thought they're going to be upset. And they were still
They loved
laughing.
it. They loved it.
They walked out on the porch and they were still laughing about the whole thing.
When
and
he
how
releases
show
the
went.
basket and it is still holding up, it
Yes.
is a very, very crowd-pleasing moment. It is, and that is
And
not.
Sean is a favorite on
Yeah.
stage. Anyway.
Yeah,
He can
him
get
and
away- he can get away with anything.
I know. I was like, how does he get away with it? We don't know. We don't know.
We don't know and we don't ask.
We don't ask. So what are some shows in your head looking forward, because you say you're not done yet, what are some shows in your head that you'd like to eventually do here at NLT? You got kind of a bucket list or a wish list?
I have in strange moments, when my mind wanders and I can't remember where I was. I have a couple. I have several, in fact.
Tell me a couple.
I can't think of one of them.
You can't think of one.
Oh, well, I know she wants to do White Christmas.
Oh, yes, we did. I would like to do White Christmas, but we've always thought this was not a big enough stage.
Well, definitely not here. But the problem was it's like the rights aren't available right now for some reason because they were going on a tour or something. I don't know.
Right.
That was we were hoping to do that soon, and then we couldn't get the rights, and then COVID. So, but it's on the short list to revisit one day. Maybe when JCC reopens, when they get all their renovations done, maybe
Yeah.
we can do it out there.
To close it out here, Ruth, I personally just want to thank you for being the first person to kind of open my eyes to theater, to
Well, thank you.
taking a chance on a snot-nosed 15-year-old kid.
You weren't snot-nosed, never. Not
You didn't like-
not even one
Oh,
time.
there was days you did not like me, and I do not blame you one bit. And I, for one, am glad that I was in your class during those days, because believe it or not, I did pay attention.
Oh, good.
I did. I learned several things little tricks that I still use that you used in your class as far as improv and getting people out of their shell and stuff like that. So it was very helpful. And yes, and sometimes yes, there were days where you goofed off a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes it was a study hall.
Yeah, but I was allowed to goof off because I was a teacher.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and see, when I was at Triple S, Bobby Cox was the theater
Oh, yeah.
arts teacher.
He recently passed away.
and he did recently pass away.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But I think I benefited because there was a theater arts teacher at Triple S, and you benefited because Ruth was at Triple S. But once you retired, they stopped doing that. And I
There's not a
think-
theater program at Triple S anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a shame. I know it's considered an extra expense, and it doesn't really do anything towards your base credits that you have to graduate and all that sort of stuff. But really, it really does. There's something you learn in a theater or learning about theater that you can't get in other classes. It promotes confidence. It helps with being in front of
Yes.
people.
Public
it helps
speaking,
You,
teamwork.
it helps
Yes.
you deal with other people because theater tends to draw in all sorts of people.
Conflict management. Yeah.
and-
That's right.
And
That's
I
right.
think it's a shame that they don't do that in public schools anymore, which is good that we do the summer camp.
Yes,
Bring it full circle.
the summer camp, indeed. And well said. I mean, I'm completely. I'm sure you feel that way too, Ruth.
Yes.
I'm sure that you believe theater is of vital importance in our lives.
Well, yes. For,
And I-
for
and I-
me, it's been a vital, it's kept me going things when times might not have. But yes, it's vital and it's important. And
Well-
thank you. It's nice to hear that somebody listened.
I
once
did.
in a while.
I did listen, Ruth. I listened. I listened a lot.
He may not have behaved himself, but he listened. He heard it.
He wasn't any worse than anybody else. He had
No.
a couple of accomplices who'd say, "Okay, Matt, say this. You say this now. Say."
Okay. Well, if you remember, I was also in your class with Andrew Britt,
Yes,
who was not one of my accomplices. He was not down for my clown tomfoolery at all. Andrew Britt, from what I remember, acted very much like a very mature 70-year-old teenager.
He was very focused as a teenager.
Yes, he was. And Andrew Britt has gone on, is probably our most, as famous is a weird word.
Accomplished,
in theater.
maybe?
Accomplished alumnus here at Neuse. He has Broadway assistant directing credits. He did a play. There's a picture of him with Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, and he's actually done.
Oh yeah, well, they were cooking.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
the Explorers Club, the show we hope to do here in the future, possibly next season. He was assistant director on the premiere at the Manhattan Theater Company in New York. I'm probably getting the name of that group wrong, but it's not Broadway, but it's very close to it. And that's very impressive as well. So that's like an invaluable resource when we finally do get Explorers Club off and running.
He was, at one point in Smithfield, he was trying to, two of them, and they were working on trying to get a thing about Neuse Little Theatre.
Documentary, yes.
Yeah, a documentary.
Which was the gestation for this, because I was wondering what happened
Oh,
to
really?
those. Yeah, the kernel of that led into this, the podcast, because I was wondering what happened to those interviews, because I like those little clips that they did record. So it fell through because of the rights issues with the play
Yeah.
we were doing, blah, 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 blah. But it was a good little, they shot some stuff on some drones, there was some really good shots of the hut, and they did some interviews with key people. And I watched those interviews, and I'm like, these are really good. And then I thought, it's not only good, it's important. We need to have this. We need to have the history of NLT documented somehow. And I'm
Well,
like,
thank you for picking that up. That's really
I thought it was
good.
important because I wanted to get people's
Yeah.
perspective that may not be here forever.
Yeah.
You know, and we need to get that on some type of. I thought I don't really care if nobody listens to it. That's not true. People are definitely listening to this podcast.
Yes.
And I do want to plug the fact that it was Andrew, Britt, and Olivia Booker.
Olivia Booker.
Olivia's the videographer.
Gotcha.
She's done quite a few documentaries and independent films, and
She
she's
was-
quite
yeah.
amazing in her
She was
filming.
at NYU, I think, or no.
I
don't
couldn't
know.
tell you where she studied at, but she's a professional, and she travels all over doing it. And she the video that she shot for us, all that drone footage and bee footage and everything, that's all
Yeah.
Olivia.
It's beautiful stuff. The hut has never looked better than that panning drone footage shot that she shot. It looks very good. Well, we're going to close it out right there, Ruth, because I don't want to get
Okay.
you home too late. It's messy out, and you know.
Doesn't matter to me.
I
I'm
know,
not
but
driving.
I think Michael might have a different idea.
He might be driving. but
So thank you.
He will be driving.
Thank you for coming and being here on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it.
Thank
and
you very
we're
much.
going to have you
Thank
on.
you, Mita.
No, yeah, yes, thank you, Mita, for sure. Thank you, Mita.
I just sit here and do color commentary.
And you knew the history of things.
Sometimes I do too. And yes, he is very good when it comes to the history of things. And during the course of this podcast, we have unearthed a good bit of information. And thank you for coming and providing a little bit more to us this evening.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Credits for the show. Your host and creator is Matt Gore. That's me. My producer and editor is Mita Toole.
That's me.
Music is by Cody Walker. Please go look up Cody on Cody Walker Music on YouTube, and he's also on Cody Walker Music on Facebook as well. He's local, so and he's got a couple of albums out. So why don't you give him a listen? You know, easy listening, John Denver type of guitar voice. That Cody Walker. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later.